If there's anyone during the session that has a question, please feel free to interrupt me. I'm fine going off script, and all the buttons that you will see today are real, so I can click it if you want me to click it. I think all the buttons are real. So my name is Frank. I'm a senior sales engineer. I've been working for Okta for almost 3 years now. I've got a background in security and IT in general. I've been a little bit all over the place. So what I would like to do is briefly look at the definition of identity and access management. I do see a lot of blend on use cases and requirements that cross into IGA, reporting tools, SIEM systems, and so on. So I think it's really important to see what is identity and access management, and how does that relate to maybe the requirements that you have today and the needs that you have today, and what does that mean for whatever is coming in the near future. So when you look at identity, I think this definition comes from Cambridge University, and what I find interesting here is that it's the fact of being who or what a person or a thing is. An interesting part is identity used to be me and my employees, and we want to do some access management there. Now the who got more interesting. It's contractors, it's freelancers, people that are not in your HR system, maybe not even in your Active Directory, but it's also what. Your vacuum cleaner, your fridge, all that stuff is getting identities. I even seen people's hamster on Facebook having an identity. So it becomes more interesting to say the definition of what is an identity. Then if you look at access, it's the means or opportunity to approach or enter a place. And the interesting part here is the opportunity. The means is fine. We want to provide access to people to get to certain resources. The opportunity is the scary part. What if we do not have intentional access, but people do get access to resources? Then you get into GDPR, penalties, big numbers, and so on. So it's interesting to not just talk about what was the intention, but also what was the side effect of your access management. And management, I don't think I have to read out the definition for management in this room. So if we put it together, I would like to define identity and access management as, and I have to read it from the screen, the process of controlling the fact of who or what a person or a thing is, and the means or opportunity to enter a place. And that's what we're going to talk about today, but I'm going to do it in a bit more detail. I want to share a video, and I think there was some issue with the audio, so I'm going to get out of my slide deck and into my... Oh, it's still not great on that side. Let me see if this works in QuickTime. So this video is a video that we showed in 2017 on Octane, our user conference in Vegas. And it talks a little bit about what is identity today and where is identity going. And this really helped me to not so much focus on what is the problem that we have today and what product will fit that need, but also what product that I select today will grow within the market and will grow within the wherever identity is going. So this is the not the traditional, let's buy something that fixes my problem now, instead of looking on the long term. This is how you buy a house, right? If you plan to have 200 cats or 3 children, you buy the house that has enough rooms to have 200 cats or a couple of kids.
Who am I? I'm 8 years old. I'm 4 feet, 8 inches. I like math, and my favorite food is ice cream. And yes, that is a food. That's who I am. But who will I be? I'll be part of the first generation that never learned how to drive. I'll be able to get in and out of a car that recognizes me seamlessly. The world around me will recognize who I am without me saying or doing anything. My identity will be my passport. I probably won't work in an office like the one my mom works in. I might work with people from all around the world, and I might live on a beach in Guatemala, but work for a company in New York without ever physically going there. In the future, identities that are on the fringes of society will become normal, making it safer to explore who we are and who we can be. We don't know yet what it means to be 120 or 130. Will I be the first 135-year-old to run a marathon? The first 150-year-old to climb Mount Everest? The first great-great-great-great-grandma in history? And what will life look like when the definition of life changes? What if I could bring back all the people I love? How do we navigate a world that's no longer defined by being alive or not alive? What about when consciousness changes? When creativity changes? When the planet we call home changes? How will all these changes affect the way we view our place in the universe? The world I'm going to grow old in will look radically different than the world as it is now. And all of you are going to lay the foundation. So please, make it great.
I think this really tends to the thought where you have to think beyond today and what is normal today. I like to talk about the Amazon shop that has no counter, no checkout anymore, and I think they're popping up in the Netherlands as well. That gives a completely different view on authentication, right? You don't go into a supermarket, log in with your username, password, and then go shopping. You need new ways to authenticate there. You need to use biometrics, multifactor authentication, and so on. So it's interesting to see that some of the things that are actually in this video are already happening. So we got it right, and I'm looking forward to the next video we're going to produce on this this topic. It's a bit conceptual, so I want to go into a little bit more. There we go. A little bit more into to Okta and what we do and how we do it. Are we getting the screen fixed? I don't want to put any pressure on anyone, but I'm going to do a demo and it's going to look better if this is fixed. We're on it?
Let's try if we...
I will just keep talking in the meanwhile. I'm not sure if that was a good idea. So I will just carry on with my slide deck, and probably it's fixed before the demo. So Okta is the foundation for secure connection between people and technology, which is a very broad definition of what we do. But we also have a really broad set of services that we deliver. And this is more of the ambition that we have than it's actually what we do today. So what we've seen is that the world changed, and I think in this audience this slide makes absolute sense, so I'm going to build it out right away. In the old time, you had a bunch of IBM, Oracle, Microsoft, one of the dinosaur stacks that are around. You would buy everything from the one vendor, and you will work with whatever they sell you. You had a bunch of desktops on a bunch of desks, and people in suits working on those computers, which is a really easy environment to secure. Nowadays, it's much more complex. There's different devices, operating systems, but also your end users are your employees, which are in your HR system and in your AD, but it's also your business partners that are in a different AD and a different HR system. It's your citizens, it's your consumers, it's everything, right? So it gets more and more complicated, and this is where things like zero trust also come around the corner. Because nowadays, the employee is not the guy in the suit behind the desk. It can be anyone, anywhere, in any coffee shop working on your systems. So we invented something that we like to call the Okta Identity Cloud. And the Okta Identity Cloud, we do identity and access management, and there's several more vendors in the space that say that they do identity and access management, and they do. We like to differentiate ourselves because we're born and built in the cloud. That means we didn't have a legacy product. We don't need AAD Connect kind of systems to sync data back and forth. We are the first line of code that we wrote was a line of code that was to be in the cloud. The people that we hire was always people that are focused around that cloud offering. And that gives us a unique opportunity. We are able to connect everything. We only do identity, where maybe Microsoft Identity will push you towards Teams. Your business might want to use Slack or any other collaboration system. We only do identity. We try to be friends with everyone, and we're doing a pretty good job there. So that keeps us independent, keeps us neutral, and also gives our customers the opportunity to later on find out that maybe they didn't make the right choice for the HR system or the CRM system or whatever system you bought, and you want to change to best of breed, to whatever is new and up and coming, now or in a year. And because we're neutral and independent, we will always connect to the best of breed, no matter what the vendor is. We're a security company. That means that we got between 50 and 100 people challenging the security on our product and our organization all the time. And that means that our customers don't have to have 50 to 100 people doing that. That means I get an awful lot of phishing mails in my email as well. So I have to be really careful where I click. We are very open in our security. So I think everyone here is or has a security officer. We share our SOC 2 Type 2 reports. We share our pen testing results. If you have a small army of hackers that want to break our product, you're more than welcome to. We love it, because that's the only way we believe to keep our product safe. Where in the past, you had to keep everything secret. We're not telling what we're doing. We're not that kind of company. And we're always on. Our CEO, Todd McKinnon, comes from Salesforce. He was the VP engineering that built the Force.com platform. And Salesforce, as probably some of you know, goes down every now and then for an hour for a maintenance window on Sunday night. If you're doing tens of millions of authentications a day, you can't go down for an hour. That's unacceptable. So we're always on. We do almost 50 updates a year, and we do that without going down. Our European cell has been 100% up for the past 2 years. And that's because before that, it didn't exist. So it's fully on all the time. On top of that, we have a couple of integrations, 6,000 plus. I think the number is 6,100 something, which is mainly with applications, but it's also with appliances, VPNs, firewalls, different architecture, infrastructure that you might have on premise that secure your environment. We have integrations with it, and we already build it and we maintain it. That means that your development team and your IT team doesn't have to build all those integrations. And we've got a couple of logos here. There's 6,000 in total, so I didn't want to put them on a slide. I already have a huge logo slide coming up. That's what Americans do in PowerPoint presentations. So this is our modules that we have. We do single sign-on. I don't think I have to spend too much time on that. We do Universal Directory, which is our user repository in the cloud. There's a lot to it. I'm not going to spend too much time on that. But we use the Universal Directory. You can connect it to multiple ADs. There doesn't have to be any trust in that. So we can connect to multiple ADs, LDAPs, different sources, HR systems, and even external identity providers for your business partners. And we can make sure that that information that we have, which department are you working for, what is your role, etc., we can translate that to accounts, licenses, attributes, entitlements in different applications downstream. So to be able to do single sign-on, you have to have a account in an application. We can automatically do that for you, and we will see that today how that works in the demo. Then we've got multi-factor authentication. All the security people go, yay. All the end users go, woo. There's never an end user that said, I want to do multi-factor authentication. I love it. Give me more, give me more. So we did it adaptive. So we only prompt you to do MFA if it's really, yeah, you?
I'm me.
You have to do it.
No, I don't have to. I do it just to avoid the consequences down the road.
And I fully agree.
Do it, then.
But you do it because it's necessary, right? Or do you also like spend your Sunday doing some MFA for like? Well, you are the example people should follow. We like to only prompt people for MFA if that's really necessary. So if you're an admin or you're going to an admin account within your AWS or your Azure environment, then you need to be prompted. But if you're going to, I don't know, the intranet, for example, maybe it's not so important to prompt for MFA. Maybe you're an admin, so you have to do MFA if you do admin stuff. But if you don't do admin stuff, or you're in the office, or you already proven yourself to be who you are, maybe you don't have to do MFA. So we try to limit the prompts of MFA and only do it when it's really necessary. And we found out that where Mark Andreessen said software is eating the world, and he was kind of right on that, we do see that now APIs are eating the software. It's more about the service that you're buying than the interfaces on top of it, and I think everyone in the room understands that. We also secure the access to those APIs. We do that as a product, so we can be part of your product that delivers APIs to other people. But it can also be your developers that use internal APIs for services that you're building. We do that from a IT products, which is B2E, me and my employees, the classic identity play, but also as API products. And API products is basically what Adobe is doing. They have the Adobe Creative Cloud, and Okta is the authentication and authorization layer underneath. That means if anyone in this room authenticates to Creative Cloud, you're actually already in Okta. It is just completely branded away. It's fully through the APIs, but they didn't want to build all the authentication mechanisms, all the MFA integrations, and so on. So we can also do that. As I said, we're a security company, and there's an awful lot of stamps of approval to prove that. If you want to see all the documentation around it, you're more than more than welcome to request them, because we will share anything with it. So then my American friends put as many logos on a slide as possible. The reason why I left it in is because the cloud vertical that you see some of the best of breed applications there. Just to mention a couple of them, Workday, Concur, Box, ServiceNow. And these guys are part of where the cloud is going, right? They drive the whole innovation within cloud. They are considered best of breed. And they trust Okta with the identities, both for their workforce and some of them even as part of their product. Also interesting is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Microsoft is our biggest competitor in the identity and access management space. And apparently Bill and Melinda sat at the kitchen table. They were trying to do Workday as a master. That didn't work out that well. And they decided to buy Okta. As a result of that, they also bought Okta for B2B and B2C use cases, where also Microsoft sells products. So it's a nice logo to talk about. And it's good to know that Bill Gates is a Okta customer. I'm in LinkedIn, so I'm also a Bill Gates customer. So kind of levels the odds. So good story, Frank. Is that all true? Yes, it's all true because Gartner says it's true. So then probably it's true. In the Gartner Magic Quadrant, which used to be identity as a service, now it's access management. So we got some of the nice dinosaurs in here. We have never been out-executed. On the access, the vertical access, the ability to execute, there was no one ever higher than Okta because we actually deliver our service. And if we don't, our customers will cancel the contract and go move somewhere else. So we really have a focus on customer success. We need to have our customers adopt our services, not sell them anything they don't need, because they will cancel it anyway. That's what you get when you have a subscription-based model. If you ask Gartner, you also have to ask Forrester, because else it would not be fair. And also Forrester kind of shares the same opinion that we're the market leader in our space. That was an awful lot of sales talk, so let's do some nice stuff, unless there's anyone with questions.
Yeah. So, for example, for a company, if we have all the users in Active Directory, is it possible to migrate all the users in that universal directory?
Yes, it's possible. It's not necessary. So if you would like to do that, that's great. What we see is a lot of environments where Active Directory still does something useful except just storing user information. So you can leave it, and in one of the demonstrations, and we should give demos together. Because my first demo is Okta Identity and Access Lifecycle Management. And what we will be doing is create a user in my Active Directory, and we will provision the user into Okta, and give him all access, day one access to all his applications. In this case, the user is not really migrated to Okta, because the password still stays in Active Directory. All the security officers go, yay! Because passwords, if you work with Microsoft, the password will be synced into the cloud. We don't sync the password into the cloud. It stays where it is. If you want to migrate those users to Okta and get rid of your AD, I will help you personally do it. It can be done, but most organizations...
No, but I have further questions. Like, let's say if I migrate it, then if the role changes of that particular person, so does it have a sync-up mechanism?
Yes, and we will see it today. We'll do a joiner, mover, leaver scenario with a person. So I think the demo will answer most of your questions. And I'm more than happy after the presentation, during the break, to answer any questions.
Okay. And regarding the MFA, multi-factor authentication, is that basically, how about basically if, let's say, an application has an integration with your external application, so certificate needs to be installed, the SSL certificates. Do we need to install even if we have an MFA?
I'm not sure why you want to install a...
Because for, let's say, there is some web service, you are having a web service which is interacting with your application, and in multi-factor authentication, you need to have a private key certificate to be installed, the SSL certificate.
Would it be okay to take this offline and... Yeah? All right. Sorry. So we'll be doing a demo for the joiner mover lever. I will also be addressing AWS via command line interface. What we've seen is doing single sign-on to, for example, SAML applications. It's quite straightforward, right? It does make a nice demo. But still, there's a lot of DevOps teams that only want to use the command line. So we build a integration with that, and I'm not going to do a live demo there because I didn't have it running. So I'm going to walk you through the process, and I will show you what the end user experience is. And we'll also briefly look at what Okta and Sumo Logic are doing together. I'm pretty sure that the Sumo Logic team can tell you even more about it. This is just a brief bridge to your presentation. So.
Pretending that we never knew each other before.
What we'll see is we'll talk a little bit about user onboarding via AD or HR. What we see is that AD is common for onboarding. HR is what people want to do. So the HR department should be the first to know that someone is joining, and should be the first to be known that someone is leaving the company, whether that was planned or incidental, spontaneous. But what we see is that AD usually still is the source. We can do both. I will quickly talk about how we do it with HR, but I will demonstrate the AD version. We'll see a automated day one access situation. So someone get access to a couple of applications that fit to their role. We'll see some access to AWS, some role and access management within AWS, adaptive multi-factor authentication, and logging and reporting. So let's see if we can get this demo started. I need to see if my iPad is visible in my, there we go. So this is the iPad that I have next to me here. We'll make it slightly smaller. So what I would like to do first is authenticate as an administrator in Okta, which in this case is, oh well, that's interesting. This makes the demo better, nicer to watch it, look at, I think. There we go. Now I've got more resolution as well, so that's good. That's my virtual machine. There we go. So I authenticate to Okta as an administrator. If I would be on my Active Directory domain and I would have a Kerberos ticket because I authenticated to the domain controller, I don't even have to do this. I do have seamless sign-on into my Okta tenant. I'm not on the domain, so I have to punch in my credentials. This user is an Okta mastered user, so he's part of the Okta Universal Directory. His password lives in Okta. The other user that we will demonstrate later on is an AD mastered user. Both of them can do a password reset through Okta. So if you do a password reset, the end user doesn't even have to know that he's part of the delegated authentication with AD. They don't really see the difference. And that's great for example, a business partner that is not in AD, that needs access to certain assets. They don't have to be in AD. They can just live in Okta. I will talk about the dashboard a bit more later on. So this is the Okta admin console. Some of you might have some experience with playing around with, for example, management consoles that Microsoft likes to deliver. We only have one, we don't have 7. So that's a big benefit for your IT team. Is there any Microsoft people in here? Good, so I can continue on.
You still have 2 versions, and if you like the new one.
So what I've done with my Okta tenant here is that I've got 3 Active Directories integrated. I don't have actual domain controllers hanging around. I do have some virtual machines, so they're a bit slower than normal. One of them is online, which is this one here, and we will be playing with that a little bit. But you can connect multiple ADs, which is a great in merger acquisition situations, where you might acquire a different company with their own AD and their own structure and their own groups and everything. You can adopt that quite easily by just installing one of the agents. I can talk about the architecture for hours. I'm not going to do that, but the architecture for connecting an Active Directory is quite lightweight. So we've got an agent that runs on a member server within the domain, so it's not the domain controller. It's 2 megabytes, 5-minute install. It's really stupid. and it uses a service account to get to your domain controller. So your domain controller is still in control what Okta can or cannot do. If you're only doing authentication, it can be a read-only account. If you want to provision new accounts, if you want to update information in AD, we obviously need a little bit more rights there. This thing only does long polling request outbound to Okta. That means that the member server needs to have HTTPS for outbound traffic open in the firewall. If you pick the right member server, usually there's a couple of member servers hanging around that can do that. It doesn't need its own server. We do recommend to have 2 of them in production because they will be high available and load balanced by itself. So it's a very easy to deploy, really quick way to do this, and it's very secure. And also opening ports on the firewall usually is a 2-week to 2-year project in some organizations. So we like to keep it easy to deploy. However, in a perfect world, there's a Workday environment that we might want to get people from. So what Okta has out of the box for Workday, SuccessFactors, Bamboo HR, there's a list of HR systems. And we can also customly build that for others. We usually do that through our partner network. What you can see here is that I'm able to import data, and this is a huge shared tenant, so I'm not going to click import because we'll be looking at a spinner for 10 minutes. But we can import new users. These are all users that are in Workday, and you can automatically create them in Okta. That means that the profile that is in Workday actually syncs up in Okta, and then you can build your policy. If your department is IT, then you get this admin level access to AWS, or you can really use all the data that you have in your Workday to provision that to Okta and build the policies around that. What you can even see is that Okta can import, for example, group memberships from Workday into Okta and use them for different policies. So let's onboard a new user. There we go. Let's say that this is Frank Frankenstein, and I hope that Frank Frankenstein does not exist yet. That's not a short name to type, but okay. No, that's okay. You can go, especially when you do HR provisioning, usually you have to go through an activation flow because the user needs to create their own password. We can fully do that. I'm now, for the sake of time, just creating the account here. So now this user is in Active Directory, and that means that he should be able to authenticate to Okta. There's not a sync in the background going on. What we will be doing is just-in-time provisioning. That means that Okta will find out, hey, there's a new user. He's properly authenticated. I don't know him yet. On the fly, I will give him all the day one access that he needs. So I'm flipping identities here. It's not that I have an identity crisis going on, but that's just to separate sessions and cookies and all that stuff. So this is a different user. Let's see if Frankenstein. What happens is now a long polling request from the agent is open to Okta. Okta will see an authentication request. We'll know probably this is a user that has to authenticate on that AD. If not, we will try the next AD and the next AD until we find a match or not. So if I hit enter, Okta will now go to AD. AD will say, yes, this is a properly authenticated user. Okta will find out, I don't know who this user is, but apparently it's a properly authenticated user. So I enabled just-in-time provisioning. So if I go to my dashboard, you can see I'm authenticated right away. And this user is now created in Okta. So is this a migration? No, because this user still authenticates on the domain controller, but he is known in Okta, and you can map all the attributes and everything. So this user got basic, he's not part of any groups in AD, so we really build a basic user, and he has access to Workplace by Facebook. If you have one application, it doesn't make sense to use a dashboard, right? So you can also say, well, I want to open a new window here. I want to go to my tenant. If I log in, then I don't have a session anymore, of course, because I'm incognito. the authentication is handled by Okta, and it will assemble automatically into my application. So if your users say, hey, I just want to use my Office 365 like I always did, that's fine, they can do that. It will redirect to Okta, and Okta will redirect back. However, we're going to give this user a little bit more access to stuff. I'm first going to show you that the user actually exists in Okta here. There's probably a lot of Franks in here. That's Frank Frankenstein. There we go. So this profile is mastered by Active Directory. You can see which applications are related to it. You can also see that there's not really groups, only domain users. So let's see if we can give him a promotion to the AWS users group, which is great. We'll refresh this. You can see now Okta picked up that he's in the AWS users group, and that means that there's some more access rights here, and that means that if I go to my user and refresh, you can see a couple of new applications popped up. I have to, this is because it's a demo. You can see now WebEx is available, Dropbox is available, Jira, Confluence, and all those accounts that you need in those different applications. For most applications, Okta can provision those accounts for you. So it really sets the entitlements. Am I a user or an admin? Which groups do I need to relate to? So if you're provisioning to Box, for example, it can tie you to the sales group, so you can see all the sales documents and so on. So Okta will manage all those accounts. And for example, for Office 365, G Suite, we also manage the licenses. So if you get offboarded in the HR system, Okta will also remove the license and make it available for a new user. Microsoft is not doing that, because they make a lot of money with just hanging around licenses. Sorry for bashing Microsoft. I'm really in a bad mood. So we also have AWS here. And in this AWS account, I said AWS users only have read-only access. They can only assume a single role. So if I click here, and this is the bad thing about demoing single sign-on, it's just clicking and you're logged in. It's not very interesting to see. As you can see, that Frank Frankenstein is now a read-only user in AWS. So let's get rid of that session. And let's see if we can get him another promotion. But first, before I do that, I want to share some of the logistics on the background, some of the things that I configured in Okta. So if I go to applications, and then I search for Amazon. There we go. Oh, that scared me. The setup of a new application it's quite easy, because we have the integration network with the 6,000 applications and all the sales talk that came after that. It is important for your admins if you give a dashboard and you're going to fight shadow IT, because now users come with their application and say, hey, can you add it to my dashboard? You have to make it possible and easy for your IT team to add those applications, right? And what we found out is that not every IT guy, not every help desk person is an expert on Salesforce, Office 365, Lucidchart, Glyphy, and all the weird tools that you can come up with. But the business wants to use them. So what we've done is we created a set of setup instructions. And for example, with AWS, it's also not that straightforward to set single sign-on. So if the IT team or the DevOps team will go to IT and say, hey, we want to use Amazon, then that guy needs to study Amazon to be able to find out how you have to do single sign-on. What we do is we provide you with all the information. So we've got a single AWS instance. We can also do multiple instances, and it will just walk you through what you need to do. Add an identity provider, click this, click there, click there, click there. For AWS, it's quite a guide. If you look at Salesforce, it's just 9 steps. You can do it in 3 minutes if you've never done it before. But it gives you all the information, the policies that you need to build, etc., etc. So you don't have to be an AWS expert to configure this. On top of that, we've got, I'm first going to look at the sign-on policy, because I also added a rule that says MFA for remote AWS admins. If I click into that, you can see for the group AWS admins, and the Frank Frankenstein is not part of this group yet, but he's about to make a promotion. If he becomes a member of this group, and if he's not in our Amsterdam office, and this is not our Amsterdam office, so he's not, no matter what client he's using, in the end, you have to do multi-factor authentication. Because our policy knows that once you're a AWS admin, you can do sensitive stuff, so we want to make sure that you have to do MFA, so you're right about that. The thing is, if you're in the office and you badged into the office and there's a reception desk, and good morning, you may assume that that person is where he should be. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's also fine. Depends on how your Wi-Fi security is taken care of. And what I've done is I made an assignment, and that assignment for AWS users, I see a list of roles that I have access to, and I just said, you can only do the read-only. However, if I look at the AWS admins, you can see you can do everything except the read-only. So if we give a promotion to Mr. Frank Frankenstein, and let's do that, no one got promoted this fast, this easy. Admin, we'll remove him from this group. Yes, apply. So now we should be able to see here that Frank Frankenstein is part of the admin group now. So that also means that he gets access to other different systems and also other entitlements within those systems. And for example, with AWS, it's different roles within AWS. So let's refresh here. You can see that a lot of new applications have been assigned. For example, also Sugar CRM. And there should also be a AWS. So now if I assemble into that, I get prompted to do multi-factor authentication, because we made a policy that says you have to do MFA if you're an admin. So I've got a range of factors that I can enroll in. These can be configured per user and per user group. So of course I'm doing a demo, I'm showing off what we can do, so I put all of them in there, except the RSA tokens and the Duo tokens. You can also do that. I will be doing my U2F token, which I have here on the side of my machine. So let's see if that's going to be queued to me. Yeah, that it is. And we'll do Okta Verify. And for that I will have to, but this is always an exciting time in my demo to see if this works out. Where's my Okta Verify? So this is a factor that we build ourselves, and we really don't have a preference whether you use our solution or another solution. If you just close the contract with RSA for 2 million to have a bunch of hard tokens, we're more than happy for you to keep them because you paid for them. On the other hand, if you don't have an MFA factor or your contract is ending or anything like that, you can use the Okta MFA as well. So I'm not going to enroll all of them. I will finish here. So now I have to send a push message. You can see on the right side I get some context, so that means phishing will be harder. You don't have to just give a couple of numbers, but you actually see the context. If it says North Korea in here, I kind of get extra conscious on pushing the red or the green button. So we'll just approve it without typing any of those numbers, which can be hard for people that are slightly dyslexic or people that just are not so tech savvy. And I think, well, most AWS users will be kind of tech savvy, I hope. But you can see after doing multi-factor authentication, I actually get access to these different roles, and I can go in as a administrator. So the flow for an admin is slightly different because you have more access, and this is prompting people only for MFA when it makes sense, right? The admin will understand if I go in with my admin access, that's fine. Of course, you can do MFA with Amazon as well, but imagine if you have more applications here. So Sugar CRM might only support Google Authenticator, and then AWS supports SMS, and then someone else supports something else. Then for the end user, the experience, the interface are going to be completely different every time. And also you're going to have a couple of apps, and you have to enroll with every application separately. If you get a new phone, you have to re-enroll.
A couple dozen apps.
Sorry?
A couple dozen apps.
Yeah? You have a couple of dozen apps with MFA?
8 now.
And they all have their own factor, or you have a single factor for all of them?
No, different.
Poor you. And you still love doing MFA. Kudos for you. So it's really good for your end users, and we will probably have a talk during the break to have one single factor, one single interface to just recognize what are we doing here and how does it work. Sorry?
One single point of failure?
Yes, absolutely. But that's how it works, right? If you want a single solution and that single solution would fail, then everything fails, right? So if we go to, and I think that's, and I'm trying to find where, there we go. So what I will show now is how this works if you have multiple AWS accounts, because having one account is quite straightforward, but the more accounts you have, the more complicated it gets to manage all that. So I'm gonna do inbound federation to another Okta tenant, which is great because if you are collaborating with business partners, now we see Okta to Okta, or we can also do CA to Okta or IBM to Okta. And this is how you can connect your business partners, and you don't have to worry if the guy over there gets fired, whether he still has your credentials to get to your environment. Because now if he gets off-boarded in his AD, he doesn't have access to your environment anymore. And that's why we are really preaching inbound federation as a way to authenticate. Still, I'm enforcing multi-factor authentication. So let's see if we... Thank you. As you can see, the domain will also change here. If I go into AWS, you can see even if I have multiple accounts, I will get a list of which roles I have access to in which accounts. And everything is provisioned automatically due to your policy engine. Does that make sense? All right. So I just got a 10-minute queue, so that means I even have to talk faster, which makes it interesting. Let me see if I can get to my deck. PowerPoint is not sweet to me today. There we go. So usually what I like to do is just spend a little bit of time on the benefits of this. I think it's important to understand the focus of Okta, that we try to sell to 3 different groups of users. It's the end users that come first, because if end users, especially in a DevOps environment, if they don't want to use your solution, they will find a way around it, or they will spend time trying to find that way around it. And both of you don't want. You want them to get back to work, but that means that they need to break your security. So you need the adoption from your end users. And for end users, it's a great experience to get access to all the applications that you need. You see a lot of like LinkedIn photos where you have like your hoodie and your backpack and your laptop and your stickers when you start at your first day in the new job, and everyone loves that because you feel welcome. But if you then open your laptop and nothing is in there and you can't start your onboarding because the applications are not provisioned, that kind of kills the whole hoodie kind of situation there. In the IT part, you see a lot of benefits from automation. Less tickets means less costs, means less error, means less responsibility. Because if someone needs to be offboarded and a ticket goes into your ticket queue for your IT team, because HR sent an email to IT saying, hey, Frank is fired, let's say, as an example. What actually happens is that IT needs to pick up that ticket as soon as possible. If they don't, there will be a discussion who is responsible for the delay and any breach that might come from it. And of course, for security, the reduction of shadow IT. And this sounds really like a selling point, but we've seen it in our statistics. If we sell to a customer and we expect 20 applications to be in the dashboard, within the first year, it will double, it will triple. Because there's so many applications that people either cannot work with just yet, and they are now able to adopt it, or they didn't even know people were using it, and they ask, can you please put this on my dashboard? So I can just click it. But what does that mean for the people that like to run command line interface? So a slightly different environment here, and this is not a live demo, for which I excuse. If anyone wants a live demo of this, I'm more than happy to schedule a meeting around that. Well, in the console, we saw that you can have multiple roles, and in this case, we have 5 roles, 3 relate to retail and 2 to sales. So we have a command line interface integration tool, which is community supported, but the community is actually a part of our dev team because they're using it themselves as well. So it's a quite well supported feature. And this allows you to, once you deploy it, to make a configuration and either use the browser to authenticate or work around the browser. And there can be different reasons for each of those use cases. We will quickly see how that looks for both of them. So if I start off on my command line and just run a AWS CLI EC2 help, just to get access to my AWS, it will actually prompt me for authentication. That means if your browser authentication is set to true, it will pop up a browser and will just show you the same login experience that you saw earlier. So this is very common for people. If you go to your dashboard every morning, you know this login screen. It's quite straightforward. You can enforce your MFA and everything as well. So we'll go to an MFA flow, and from there on, you get prompted for the different roles that you have. So this is a similar experience that we saw on the dashboard, but then on the command line. Once you choose your role, you get access to your AWS environment. There's also a use case where you would say, well, I want to do it without the browser for whatever reason. Then you can actually see here that I'm just running the command again. I get prompted for a username. I get prompted for a password. This is your Okta username password. So it can also be your AD username password. Whatever is behind it, can be an LDAP. Whatever Okta is doing there to authenticate the user works here as well. You can see that MFA works. So you can just click 1 to get the push message. Click OK on the push message. Select your role. And you get access. For us, it's really important to give the same experience time and time again to your end users, whether they use a command line interface or a SAML application or anything like that. This really helps drive adoption of the dashboard and of the Okta solution, because people can work in the way that they love the most. Do I want to go to Office 365, or do I want to use the dashboard, or do I want to use the command line? You're free to choose whatever you like, and what IT, of course, allows you to do. It's easy on and offboarding. It's the same mechanism that we saw through the browser. And for security, I think the same reasons still apply. It's higher security, easier to audit, it reduces shadow IT, and for once, end users love security. And that's one of the big points what we see in the adoption of Okta. Really quick on the Sumo Logic. So I think we have 2 minutes to spend on Q&A, for which I'm sorry. If you look at our system log, it contains a lot of information. This is on every event that we log, which we do in near real time, so that's within 2 seconds. All this information is available. And we do have some reporting around it, but it's very basic, let's say. I don't want to say it's bad, but it's very basic. So we found out that the people at Sumo Logic have a better view on how to report this and to take action on what you see. So we've got an integration which is fairly easy to deploy. Some of my colleagues have it running for live, so we can also show you how that works. I didn't have access to a tenant, so I will talk with you about that.
See, I'll
Yeah, I know, but it expired, so that's why they expired after a while. So Sumo Logic will give you a proper view on the events. It will ingest more logics, not just Okta events going there, but whatever else is going on. From there on, it can prompt whatever alert that is necessary. And the important part is that this ties back to Okta again. So imagine that there's a risky event related to a user somehow. Sumo Logic will detect that and give that to your SecOps team. Then you can quarantine that user. And we've got use cases where you will pop it up, the event in Slack. Slack will say, hey, there's something evil going on with this user. You press a button, quarantine the user, then you put MFA on everything, on all the different applications. You even banish, for example, your AWS admin accounts. You say, okay, now you're in a group that doesn't have access to your AWS account because something is going on. And you can also enrich with the data from Okta, enrich that event as well. And after a certain amount of time, this SecOps teams, with the tools that they love to use, they can prompt to the Okta API, hey, this user, it's all clear, everyone is happy, you can go back to normal again. So it's the Okta, the IT guys, and even the security guys can build the policies here, and this can prompt you to be temporarily in a different policy, so it's stricter, it's more secure. And there's some benefits on that as well. So there we go with the open discussion in 2 minutes, right? Thank you.